Our nation faces a serious problem with student loan debt. Last month, the National Association of Consumer Bankruptcy Attorneys issued an eye-opening report entitled The Student Loan Debt Bomb. The report pointed out that American student borrowing exceeded $100 billion in 2010, and total outstanding student loans exceeded $1 trillion last year. There is now more student loan debt in this country than credit card debt. Of course, when used prudently, student loans can be valuable. In many instances, student loans help Americans get a quality education and job skills that they need to repay their loans and have a rewarding life. Unfortunately, it's clear that too many students have been steered into loan arrangements that they will not be able to repay and never able to escape. According to an analysis by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, 37 million Americans hold outstanding student loan debt as of last year. The average balance, $23,300. However, only 39% of those student loan borrowers were paying down their balances last year. The New York Fed study found that 14% of student loan borrowers, that would be 5.4 million Americans, were delinquent on paying their student loans, while the remaining 47% of borrowers were either in forbearance or were still in school and adding to their debt. Last month, Standard & Poor's issued reports saying that, quote, student loan debt has ballooned and may turn into a bubble, end of quote. And Moody's Analytics recently said, quote, the long-run outlook for student lending and borrowers remains worrisome, end of quote. While the overall growth in student indebtedness is troubling, the most pressing concern are private student loans. According to the Project on Student Debt, the most recent national data shows that 1/3 of bachelor degree recipients graduated with private loans at an average loan amount of $12,550. These private student loans are a far riskier way to pay for an education than federal loans. Federal student loans have fixed, affordable interest rates. They have a variety of consumer protections built into them, such as forbearance in times of economic hardship. They offer manageable repayment options, such as income-based payment plans. On the other hand, private student loans have high variable interest rates, often 2 or 3 times the interest rate that a student pays on the federal loan, hefty origination fees, and lack of repayment options. And private lenders have targeted low-income borrowers with some of the riskiest, highest-cost loans. Once a student takes out a private loan, the student is at the mercy of the lender. Every week, my office hears from students who say private lenders will not work with them to consolidate loans or work out any manageable repayment plan. And if the student falls behind on payments, private lenders are aggressive with collection efforts. In many respects, private student loans are just like credit cards, except unlike credit card debt, private student loan debt cannot be discharged in bankruptcy. In 2005, Congress changed the bankruptcy law and included a provision making private student loan debts non-dischargeable in bankruptcy, except under very rare circumstances. I asked myself, how in the world did that provision get in the law, giving to these private loans the same status as a federal student loan or payments that are owed for taxes, alimony, and child support? It turns out it was a mystery amendment. We can't find out who offered it. We certainly know who benefited from it. While the volume of private student loans is down from its peak in 2007, when it accounted for 26% of all student loans, we know that private lending is still being aggressively promoted by the for-profit college industry, and you will hear from the witnesses about that industry, particularly the attorneys general who are here. The Project on Student Debt reports that 42% of for-profit college students had private loans in 2008, up from 12% in 2003. For-profit college students also graduate with more debt than other students who graduate from public and private nonprofit colleges. For-profit colleges have a business model of steering students into private student loans, even when they still have eligibility left under the federal student loan, which is a fraction of the interest payment. And as a result, many students are pushed into taking out private loans when they're still eligible for federal loans, even when the lenders know the students are likely to default. We need to take steps now to address this looming student problem. It is necessary to help struggling students and help our economy. We're going to have an opportunity. Come July, the interest rate on federal student loans will double without congressional action. We cannot allow that to happen, but we need to not only use that as an opportunity to do the right thing for students in terms of interest rates, but also to address this looming crisis of student debt. I've introduced legislation, the Fairness for Struggling Students Act, to restore the pre-2005 bankruptcy treatment of private student loans. There is no reason why private student loans should get treated any differently than other private debts in bankruptcy. And it's especially egregious that these private loans are non-dischargeable in cases where the student was steered into a loan while they were still eligible for safer, lower-cost federal loans. I believe we should also require full private student loan certification to ensure that students take advantage of their federal student aid options before turning to private loans. We should push for meaningful accreditation for for-profit institutions. Wait till you hear the testimony, which I've read, about some of these for-profit schools, even in my state of Illinois, and what they're doing to these students. And we should encourage the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, currently collecting data and complaints about private student loans, to use its authority to take corrective steps. It's an issue which has been taken up in the authorizing committee by Senator Harkin with a number of hearings. We've had several hearings through the Judiciary Committee, and they will continue. As I mentioned at the outset, come July, there will be a moment of reckoning when we decide whether to address the interest rate to be charged on federal student loans. As I understand it, it doubles from 3.4% to 6.8%, a burden which I don't want to impose on students across this country, but it also creates an opportunity for us, if we're up to it, to have an honest discussion about what's happening to student debt in America. Student debt crisis in this country is largely ignored by Congress. We are not paying any attention. And unfortunately, there are a lot of lives of individuals, Danielle Jokla is one, who are being changed dramatically by laws that we pass or fail to pass. And going back to the point made by Senator Blumenthal, it is hard to imagine a young person who thinks they're doing the right thing, an education for goodness sake, borrowing money to get that degree, which they've been told is the most important thing in life, making a decision before they're 25 or 26 years old that ends up haunting them for a lifetime. And that is literally what we're talking about here. When it's not dischargeable in bankruptcy, it is there to the grave. And that's why it is so important we continue to work on this.